Now, into the ticket office of Disneyland.
Oh boy, let's do this.
Don't think the CIA is going to be trying to hack your second-gen iPod.
I didn't think so. There might have been a lot of illegal music on there. I wouldn't doubt it. But, I mean...
You were supposed to bring death to the flagships, not join them.
Google has found a new way to piss me off.
iTunes is a constant source of embarrassment.
Behind-the-scenes camera crap.
Here, tell us about courage, Phil. Tell us about courage.
I am Nadella. I can't do it anymore without laughing. I was going to do the whole thing.
Welcome, everyone, to the Calling All Platforms podcast. I am your host, Wes, and I'm here with Landen.
Also known as Killing Wes's Dreams One by One.
And Caleb.
Hi.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
well, let's go ahead and let's get into that. Like, geez, you want to explain that one there, Killing My Dreams?
Well, I'll get into that when we get into gaming, but
Yeah, we will.
Just be prepared, listener. It's a fun one.
Oh, God. No, yeah, we'll definitely have some talks about that. If you've been following along with us for a while, we definitely rant about some things. And, you know, destroying Wes's hopes and dreams is another thing we do on this podcast sometimes.
It's basically the subtitle of the podcast at this point.
Usually it's in a
destroying hopes
joking
and
matter,
dreams.
but this actually could happen.
I guess we'll get into it later. Hey, Landon, why don't you start us off with the news you want to talk about? Let's get into this.
All right. I do have something worth talking about that's not gaming. First off, we're going to talk rumors, something I usually don't cover, but I figured, kind of a slower news week, so I'm going to mention it. As of right now, the rumor is that the Pixel 7a is scheduled for release at Google I.O. Now, this is not an abnormal thing. It has been the last couple years because of COVID and different things pushing production times back for the Pixel A series phones. But this year, they're planning on coming back to releasing it at Google I.O. We do have some rumored specs, but the only one that I really care to mention is that it's potentially going to have wireless charging finally on the A series, which, I mean, isn't a huge deal to most people, especially if you've had the A series, you haven't had it. So it's not like, finally, I'm going to, be able to use my wireless charger. No, you haven't had one, but you will be able to get one if you want and be able to use that with the A series. And I like that. Other interesting thing that we are hearing that could happen at I.O. is a Pixel Fold announcement.
I did hear about that.
Which, we've been hearing rumors that this is going to get announced at the next Google event for the past year and a half, and obviously it hasn't happened. And I keep going back to the fact that Google sucks at keeping leaks from getting out. So the fact, up until now, the fact that we hadn't even seen the device, let alone a lot of rumors about it, I was always skeptical of people saying, oh, it's going to get talked about at this next event. No, it's not. We haven't seen anything about it yet. This time, though, we've actually seen things about it. There's a video posted online of not a hands-on, but somebody opening and closing it. And so I could actually see this one happening. And it does make some sense to announce it at I.O., a developer conference, where they're probably going to make some sort of emphasis on developing for bigger screens. Also, because, last year at I.O., they announced the Pixel tablet that still hasn't come out yet. So that could also be coming at I.O., hopefully a release for that and more details on that, because the details on that are very slim. But yeah, so with this push that Google has made the past couple of years of developing for bigger screens, and the fact that there has been foldable devices already in the market for the last few years, I could see Google finally doing this. There's a lot of people really wanting it. The only problem is that the rumored price of this thing is $1,800, which is a lot of money, but it's still on par with other companies. But yeah, we shall see. Obviously, again, these are rumors, so I'm not going to go into any rumored specs or anything like that, because they're probably right because it's Google, but they could change. They could be wrong. Who knows? So, but those potentially are going to be coming to Google I/O. We will find out in, oh my gosh, that's only like 3 weeks away at this point.
Yep.
That's
Wow.
crazy. It's starting to become a really busy time of year, as we'll get to in the gaming segment. But that's all my Google news. I have some general tech news, and this is some unfortunate news. Netflix has announced that they will be rolling out their password sharing rules that they talked about outside of Canada, starting in Q2, which starts next week. So, I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen immediately, but it's going to start rolling out basically almost everywhere else that they are outside of Canada, which is going to be interesting to see. Like, they do have an option where you can add accounts to your plan for $8 a month, which is funny because that used to be what you paid for Netflix. Now it's not.
Yep. Wow.
So per account is $8 extra.
$8
per
extra if
extra
you want
level.
to be able to share your password with other people, basically.
Oh, okay. So it's not like a family plan. It's just
No.
a one password, or this person doesn't get their own. Okay.
Yeah, it would be smart of them to do a family plan, like even if it was $8 a month, like what it is, and you get 6 people that you can share with, like what other companies do. Weird. But no, they're not doing that. They're doing $8 per account. And sadly, it actually has worked out in their benefit in Canada. So it's not like they're going to not do this everywhere else because, like I said, it has worked for them in Canada. Unfortunately, people are paying, which I'm not going. If we lose access to Netflix, I'm not going to be doing this because it's not worth it to me. So that's my thing. But I know people that probably will. I'm going to be telling them that you're an idiot. Don't do this. Don't tell Netflix that this is a good thing because it's not.
Yeah.
It's not my fault that they make stupid shows. Anyways. Also, something that Netflix is doing, which isn't as, I wouldn't say this is bad news. It's kind of surprising that it's still a thing. Well, it was still a thing, or I guess it is technically. But Netflix is going to be finally stopping their DVD by mail service in September.
Yeah.
So apparently there are still people doing this. And if you are one of them, listener, you have until September to finish the DVDs that you have in your queue, and then you will be a streaming option only subscriber or just quit Netflix.
I sympathize for the folks that are still doing this because what they 100% guaranteed what's happened there is they live in an area with no good internet options.
Yeah.
Like if they want internet fast enough to stream on, they have to go with a satellite provider, and odds are that that's like $250 a month for like maybe 7 megabits per second down.
Yeah.
So they can't even get good streaming, but it is just fast enough for a single stream. And so they're like, well, frick, I can't watch any of this stuff, but I want to have, so all of the video rental stores in the tiny town down the street closed. So I need something. And, okay, Netflix DVDs, but nope, that's not a thing anymore. So
yeah.
If this is you, listener, it seems to me that you have a couple of options. Get really into podcasts because those don't require nearly as much bandwidth. And there's, literally millions of options out there. So hopefully that's something that can entertain you. Or this thing, you may have heard of them. They're called books. So, because I don't know what else to really, Netflix is gone. Nobody else does anything even remotely like that. And I guess Redbox, maybe?
They are still a thing, yeah.
They're still a thing.
Redbox is still a thing.
So if there's a Redbox at the McDonald's, in town about 30 miles away, you can Redbox movies, I suppose. But gosh, you got to pay by the day with those though. And then you have to return them and that's probably a pretty significant drive for these few folks. I don't know. This really sucks for you folks. I'm sorry. I know them. They live in the mountains of West Virginia, all of these people that this matters to. I have met these folks and I feel bad for them.
I work with some
So-
of these folks that would have utilized this potential. I work with somebody that can't get regular cable type internet, and he has what's
Do
Elon's
I know him?
internet? Yes,
Do I
you know him.
Okay.
What's
Okay.
that internet that Elon has? That satellite, whatever.
Oh,
Starlink.
Starlink.
He has this, and actually, it's benefited him a lot because you know he can now actually get decent internet at his house, whereas before he was getting he was supposed to be getting 7 megabits up, and said it averaged around 2. But now he's getting much better speeds. So,
Yes.
I mean, there's that is an option, but again, not necessarily a cheap option, but it is an option.
Yeah, that's true. And I guess Starlink has made satellite internet better and a lot more affordable for a lot of people. So, maybe the internet options are finally catching up to where these folks will be able to use streaming. But I don't know, you still need a clear view of the sky, and some people just don't have it. Once again, thinking of those folks in the hollers of West Virginia, they can't see the sky.
That's true. I mean, the other potential benefit to Starlink is it may down the road come with a Twitter Blue subscription. We don't know. But
Oh gosh.
sorry, had to go
Yeah.
there.
Except by then it's not going to be called Twitter. It's going to be called Company AIX or something, whatever
Probably.
Elon decides to change it to.
Yeah.
We know he's so good at naming stuff. Just look at the name of his kid.
Yeah. Pretty much. It's almost as good as Michael Jackson. Anyways, so yeah, Netflix will be killing their DVD by mail option in September. So you do still have a few months. You can slowly binge watch things until September.
Just as many DVDs as you can and rip them all onto a hard drive.
There you
That's
go.
what I would recommend.
There you go.
So that then you don't watch them. Just get them in the mail, rip them, immediately put them back in the mail, get the next one coming.
Get as much as you can.
As fast as you can, and then build up a big old backlog, and then you can work through it after they cancel it.
It's not
There
a
you
bad
go.
idea. Not a bad idea. All right. Now, I do have some hardware to talk about. And this is always one of my favorite phones to come out every year. It's the Asus ROG phone. This one happens to be the 7th iteration. And they do have 2 versions. They have the ROG Phone 7 and the ROG Phone 7 Ultimate. Now, the only one I really care to talk about is the Ultimate because that's the most fun version of this phone by far.
Because holy crap.
Yes. This is the phone that if you care about the numbers, this is the phone that you buy. Now,
Yep.
let's go through some specs on this thing. It has a 6.78-inch 1080p AMOLED display made by Samsung, and it's actually it's a really nice display. Not gonna lie, Samsung does do really well when it comes to phone displays. There's a reason why most people buy their phone or their displays. It's got 16 gigs of RAM, so probably more than what your computer has potentially,
Oh god.
Yeah.
which is fun. And it's got a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, so it's got the highest end processor right now. It's got a 6,000 milliamp hour battery, and that is dual battery, so it's 2 3,000 milliamp hour batteries because they've got this thing. The one of the best things I saw with this is Marques Brownlee's video on this phone. He talks about this, and he says it's well balanced, and he can literally balance this thing on his finger. If he puts his finger in the middle of the phone, it just holds in place because they've got everything just in there perfectly. So when you're holding it, it's not that you would really be able to tell that it's heavier on one side or the other, but it isn't, which is interesting. Camera wise, this has a triple camera system on the back. It's got a 50 megapixel main sensor, a 13 megapixel ultra wide sensor, and then technically a third camera that's a 5 megapixel macro sensor. It's mostly there for looks. It's not going to be super beneficial. But the front camera is a 32 megapixel sensor. And it's a wide angle sensor, which thank good, that's all that ever should be on the front. It does have a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack because it's a gaming phone. That's generally going to come with it. And 2 stereo speakers on the front of the device. So that does have a little bit of a forehead and chin for those speakers, but still very minimal. And from what I've heard, the speakers actually do sound pretty good.
Yeah.
It has a fingerprint sensor under the display, which is pretty common nowadays. And the color on this one, it comes in Storm White, which is really good looking on this phone. And it also has a 2-inch display on the back of the phone, which has become fairly common with these ROG phones, at least the higher end version. And it's, as they say, customizable, which, okay, sure. There are 6 different options that you can have playing or showing on that screen, which I guess that's customizable, but they're really only options when you're doing certain things. So, like, there's a screen that shows, like, when you're playing a game, it shows a different gaming type screen. If there's an incoming call, it shows, like, a notification type thing. If you got something plugged into it, it shows a little connection, like a interesting looking connection display going on there. Shows when your phone is charging. Like, the visual that they have on their website is like a rocket ship that's slowly, charging, I guess. Weird. And a couple other ones, but those are the interesting ones to me.
Yeah. It's kind of cracks me up. If you ever hear a company, listener, if you ever hear a company say that a screen is customizable, you know that it's actually not as customizable as you want it to be.
Yeah.
Because to be clear, you want a customizable screen, the front screen on the phone is far more customizable. If you want that screen to show a 10-hour loop of Baby Shark, you absolutely can. It's on YouTube. Like, it takes zero effort. That's a customizable screen. If they have to specify that it's customizable, what that means is very limited options.
Yeah.
Because if it honestly could show everything, that just anything you wanted it to, they just say, it's a screen. You do what you want with the screen on a phone. That's how they work. But no, that's not what this is.
Yeah, no. It also does have, as they're calling it, ultrasonic buttons. It's basically got some triggers on the top corners of the phone, or the top side corners of the phone. So when you're gaming, you can customize those buttons to do certain things. But in my opinion, if you're going to go as far as just to buy this phone for one, and you're going to use it for gaming, you want to get the accessory. I don't know if it comes with this accessory or not, but it's an amazing accessory, as is on par for the accessories that come with these phones. They're always good.
Yeah.
This one steps it up just a little bit more. I can't remember what they're calling this accessory. It's the Aeroactive Cooler 7. So just in the name, it kind of tells you what this accessory does. It's a fan, basically.
Yep.
And it plugs into the side USB-C port, because there's 2 of those. There's 2 USB-C ports on the phone, because naturally. And it plugs into that, but also next to that, it has this little, for lack of a better term, a slot kind of thing that it opens up on the back of the phone. There's if you look at the phone on the back, it's got this black little notch in the back of the phone, and that slides out of the way when you plug in this accessory, opens up the back of the phone, and allows air to be blown into it to keep it actively cooled from the fan on this accessory, which is absolutely insane and awesome. There's been accessories like this that basically put a phone or a fan on the back of your phone to keep it cool. This is actively blowing air into the phone because it opens up this little gateway to do that. And then they've got it built inside to where it strategically puts the air to cool down everything inside well and properly. And that's really cool. But not only does it do that, it also has 4 trigger buttons on this accessory as well that you can customize to do different things with gaming. And it also has a little small subwoofer speaker on it as well. So makes the sound coming out of this phone even better, which I did hear a comparison. Like the regular phone by itself sounded pretty good because of the speakers built into the phone. But then you add this to it, and it just adds that extra oomph that a subwoofer generally does. And it sounds that much better. It's awesome.
Man.
It's so cool. I mean, like I said, if you're going to get this phone and it doesn't come with this accessory, you might as well buy the accessory just because it's cool. I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And the accessory also has different RGB lighting and whatnot because it's a gaming phone. It's got all the bells and whistles that you would expect from a gaming device like this. It's just awesome.
That's awesome.
Now,
That's so cool.
the unfortunate part of this phone, at least for us, it's currently not available in the US, but it is on sale in most places. The ROG Phone 7 is €999, and the Phone 7 Ultimate is $1399. So keep that in mind. It's not a cheap phone. It'll probably be similar prices when it does come to the US because they do say that it will come to the US, just not yet. But so $1,000 or $1,400 respectively for the two phones. But it's such a cool phone. I love the Asus ROG phones. They're always so fun and really cool.
Really, they are.
And if you're really big into mobile gaming, like high-end games on your mobile device, which there are some, this is probably the phone to get because like the camera on it isn't going to compete with your Pixels, your iPhones, or your Samsungs, but it's good enough. It's going to get the job done. And if what you really care about is having a really good gaming experience on a mobile device that is also a phone because you don't want to buy something else for some weird reason, then this is the phone to get. All right. Now, that's kind of a good segue into, some actual gaming news from me, listener.
Yeah.
And to those that like my one more gaming news type segment, I actually made sure beforehand that Wes was not going to steal this because he almost did again.
I asked a question. That's all I did.
Well, you mentioned something, and I was like, wait a minute, what are you talking about, Wes? And we cleared it up. So I can cover something in gaming because it doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
All right. My one bit of gaming news is that Sega, formerly a hardware company, turned to a just game development studio, is buying Rovio for $775 million. Now, this is...
Yep.
I mean, they've announced this, and they're saying that the deal should close sometime in Q2 of 2024, so it's still going to take about a year to fully finalize everything. But I'm not hearing things that saying that it's going to be held up by any things, kind of like what we've been talking about for the last 18 months with another acquisition. But we'll get into that in a little bit. But I think this is a decent deal for Sega. I mean, it's a lot of money, but Rovio has been kind of, I can't say on the downside. Like, they're still very popular. Like, Angry Birds is basically their main, that's almost their only thing.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they do have one or two other things, but Angry Birds is their thing. And it is still popular, but it's not nearly as popular as it was even a few years ago, which is why they, as we mentioned a few weeks ago, got rid of their regular Angry Birds game that was a buy once and you're done thing because they were losing money because people wanted to play that rather than play the game that has all the microtransactions and ads and all that stuff in it.
It's weird how that works. I don't know.
It is weird. But yeah, so I think it's interesting. Sega has also said that they want to get more into the mobile gaming sphere, and this is obviously a big push into that. And they want to use Rovio's know-how and technology basically to produce more games, probably bring games under the Sega brand into mobile gaming. And there's a lot of options they could choose from. The one off the top of my head is Sonic. They own Sonic still, right?
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
there are some Sonic games on mobile devices, but
Yep.
if you get the Rovio developers behind that are specifically, gaming developers or mobile gaming developers, they could make an even better version of those games, I think.
Yeah. I think it's fair to say that, yes, there are Sonic games on mobile, but the only ones that you probably would be interested in playing are the ones that are just straight ports of old console Sonic games.
Yeah.
Like Sonic 1, Sonic 2, Sonic CD, stuff like that. Those are fun. You want an external controller for those, but those are fun. Otherwise, all the Sonic games are like crappy Endless Runners, a kart racer that's... I've played it. There's a video on Calling All Platforms Gaming on YouTube if you want to go check that out, listener. It's not amazing. There's a few things like that, and it's just kind of like, yeah, Sonic, I feel like maybe stop throwing crap at the wall to see if any of it sticks. Please.
Yeah,
That's a lot of crap, guys.
Yeah, they need to take some time after this acquisition, let Rovio developers do their thing, and make a decent to good Sonic mobile game. And unfortunately, it's going to have all the microtransactions that the Angry Birds games do, but it'll probably be at least a decent game to play. And you don't have to pay for things if you don't want to. Like, I do have Angry Birds 2, I think is what the one that they push the most. It's a fun game, even without having to buy a bunch of stuff. Yes, there are ads and it's annoying, but it's still a fun game. So I think that, like I said, this is a pretty decent deal for Sega, especially if they do want to get into the mobile sphere of gaming. So not a bad purchase in my opinion.
Yep.
And that is all of my gaming news, other than I want to mention what we teased at the beginning of the episode. So,
of course you do.
Wes mentioned that he is hopeful that this Microsoft ABK deal should be done within the next week or two, based on different things that are happening in the EU and whatnot. He's hoping that this can get done. But,
well, let me explain. There's
Okay.
a lot more than it's done next week. So the deadlines on for both the EU and the CMA, for them to have an answer of whether it's approved or not, is next week. 26th of April, something like that. It's next week.
yeah.
And there's like one's supposed to be one day and the other one's supposed to be the next day. Something interesting that's happening is the Landen invited Microsoft out on that day to come out on that day, do a party or something. So, okay. So the what I said was, what I'm kind of hoping, number one, I just want this to be done. So that's why I said that.
Everyone wants this to be done.
I just want it to be done. So what I said to Landen and Caleb, and I was like, hey, what would be nice is if they just give the approval on both of those from the CMA and the EU, and then Microsoft can just say, you know what, FTC, we're just going to go ahead and just close because everyone else in the entire freaking world, except America, sorry, is saying, yes, this is fine with, and just push for it. And I hope they just can close and move forward and just kind of be like, all right, whatever. And then we started talking after that. I'm like, I hope it's just done and we can just be pushed forward. And then I realized, I was like, wait, guys, you know how much news is going to really come out? Because we were just discussing of how much Microsoft really hasn't been putting news itself on all their brands, except obviously features in Windows 11 that should have already been there. But I feel like there's going to be so much more that's going to be happening. And then Landen decided to explain his horrible thoughts. Go ahead. I'll let you.
So my what I said, I'm predicting that this could and wouldn't surprise me if this happened. Unfortunately for Caleb and Wes, because it's not going to affect me as much, other than I've got to edit the podcasts that are going to be happening 3 times a week starting in June. But what I think, or wouldn't be surprised by happening, is that this is going to get approved but then it's not going to get like fully quote unquote finalized and official until a week or two before what would have been E3, because we all know that E3 is officially canceled, but that's still all the gaming announcements are going to happen then. So what's going to happen is this is going to get officially official a week or two before that, and then everyone that has been holding off specific announcements because of this acquisition, which we know has been happening because it's just been really quiet in the gaming world for certain things because of this. Everything is going to get announced during that time frame, which is going to basically triple the announcements that would have already happened at E3 or what was E3.
Just call it E3 till someone comes up with a better name.
Yeah. So it's just going to be a massive bombardment of gaming news for like a month and a half. Like, you won't be able to turn on your computer with, like, you're going to get on your news site and then 1 minute later get back on it, and there's going to be 10 new articles about 10 new games or 10 new features or a bunch of random stuff that is just so much stuff to talk about because of this. And it's just all the stuff at the same time.
You know, and we're talking about just the Microsoft stuff, but can you imagine how many other companies have been holding off? Like, let's be real. I'm surprised Sega went for this for Rovio, because, I mean, it's almost $1 billion. But then again, I guess Sony, I mean, they just acquired, who did they just acquire? They acquired somebody. Some other company. But just, I don't know. But people, like, it just seems like innovation has stopped.
Right.
And so that's what I'm saying. That, like, not only is it going to be Microsoft that's going to be just Xbox, but the entire company of Microsoft's going to be like, okay, now that we have this, here's all these things. Here's our mobile store that we're going to do. Oh, by the way, we resurrected Windows Phone because now we're going to have a mobile store. We're going to have this. This is going to happen. Surface has this. Also, we've partnered with these people, and we're going to partner. Like, there's going to be so much innovation news, which is great. But like Landen said, we're going to have 3 episodes a week just to keep up on just because then Apple's going to have all their stuff.
WWDC happens right at the beginning of June as well.
Yes.
And, you know, normally I/O right at the beginning of May, WWDC is at the beginning of June. Microsoft does their developer conference in between those two, sometime in the middle of May.
Yeah.
But it may make more sense for them to be like, well, we're going to hold off and talk about all this stuff at the same time as we talk about all of the like ABK stuff, because one of the main things we want to talk about for developers is this app store, mobile app store thing that we want to do. And that's going to rely on a lot of the properties and the technologies that we're getting from King. So we, you know, talk about all that stuff at the same time. So we may get their developer conference on top of Apple's developer conference, on top of all of their gaming announcements, which will be on top of everybody else's gaming announcements. And that will be the first week of June.
On top of everything Sony has been holding off on announcing because of this deal.
Right. Because they've been, because they can't like just weaken their bargaining position.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be a fire hose. Like, listener, if you've ever seen the movie UHF with Weird Al, it's amazing. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. But there's the moment with the fire hose because the kid found the marble in the oatmeal. That's what it's gonna be. Looking forward to it.
It's going to be quite the news. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that was the little tease that we had at the beginning of the episode that I just made Wes's day much worse by saying that.
There's so much. I don't know. It's just, which could have all been just nicely trickled through the year if people would just let this deal go through, but whatever.
Well, if people would just get smart and realize, okay, E3 is never going to happen again. Let's maybe do our announcements when they're ready.
Spread that out a little bit, please.
I hope so. I hope. But we'll see what happens. Well, I'll kind of continue down this train. We're talking about acquisitions. Let's go ahead and we'll talk about this. I thought this was interesting. Kind of cool if you're an old Atari fan. It says Atari announced today that, today being on, I'm reading the article here, which is on April 20th. They say that they have acquired over 100 classic Accolade info games and Microprose games from the 1980s, 1990s, along with the trademarks and the accolades of GTI brands.
Whoa, dang. Microprose. What did I play that was one of those? No, I have extremely strong associations with seeing that company splash name splash up at the beginning of a game. And I don't know what game it is. Oh, man.
Kind of cool. But they said that they're acquiring it, so it's part of the Atari strategy to expand its video game business by leveraging its catalog of classic titles to bring games to markets, reinventing old classics, reimagining storylines, and things like that. So I thought that was kind of cool. I mean, why not?
Oh, it's Civ. Civilization. That's what it was. Yeah.
There you
the
go.
Original Civ. And actually, holy crap, I've played quite a number of these, come to think of it. All on the Atari, go figure. An Atari ST back in the day. So yeah, that's actually pretty cool. You know what? This tracks. Atari has basically decided that they're not going to try and compete in the modern gaming sphere. They're just going to emphasize the nostalgia of everybody who played games in the 80s and 90s. And that's their market now. And honestly, they're kind of competing there with nobody. Nobody else is really focusing on that. So I guess that's a solid strategy.
Nintendo tried for a minute with their retro gaming boxes, which they only made a limited amount of for some dumb reason, and I never was able to get one, which pisses me off still. Like, if they were to just continuously make those, that's just free money for them, you know?
It is. Yeah.
And it makes sense that Atari would do something like this, because when you think Atari, you think old 80s gaming. You don't necessarily think new, at least I don't. You don't generally think new stuff coming from Atari. So to do this makes a whole lot of sense for their brand.
Yeah. No, it does. And
actually, you know who would compete with them, though? Is actually Activision.
I mean, to an extent. You got to keep in mind. You got to keep in mind, Atari was the giant of video games before Nintendo.
Yeah.
Well, I might be off, but didn't Activision split from Atari? Those creators that created the game split, and then they made Activision because they wanted their names on the games.
Yes, but that happened much later. That was after Atari had already... I think Activision split off. It was either very late 80s or early 90s, I want to say.
I couldn't remember.
Whereas Atari started... they released the first home game console in
right. They are the first. I'm not saying
or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, Atari has this gigantic legacy in gaming, and they're just capitalizing on it. It makes sense, and I think good for them.
Yeah. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on a little bit. Little Xbox news. There's a new thing you can have on Xbox consoles. Ubisoft Plus. You're going to have access on that now. So just like how EA Play is on there, Ubisoft has put this on there for $17.99 a month.
Oh, great. Wow.
What this does is subscribers can play over 60 of the Ubisoft games, but also all their DLCs. So, cool. I mean, there's people that are really into Ubisoft games. I'm not one.
See, I don't understand how you can be really into Ubisoft games. Just buy one. That's all of them. I don't.
One that has guns and a big map. One's
right. They've got the one with guns and a big map. They've got the one with not guns
and a big map
and a big map. And then they've got the more different one with guns and Tom Clancy's name on it and a big map. It's literally just the same. I don't know how to describe this any more than to say I have purchased one Far Cry game in my life. Far Cry Primal looked interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I bought Far Cry Primal. I played Far Cry Primal. I was like, you know what? This isn't bad. And then I downloaded the open beta for Ghost Recon. And I played a little bit of Ghost Recon. And I was like, this is the exact same game as Far Cry Primal. It just has guns and cars. Like, literally, there was no difference. And then I started looking deeper. And I was like, oh my gosh, all of these Ubisoft games are the same game. And then they're all like, oh my gosh, we didn't do very good with Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, or not Brotherhood, the one in London. I can't remember what that one was called.
Yeah.
And so they're like, oh, we're going to take a year off of Assassin's Creed and we're going to reinvent the franchise. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. It could probably use a reinvention. They reinvented it into Far Cry. Like, they reinvented it as a generic Ubisoft game. I'm like, Ubisoft, what are you doing? Just, it's the same game over and over and over again. Now, to be fair, Ubisoft also publishes games, and I'm going to assume that a good chunk of these are games that are published by Ubisoft, not made by Ubisoft. So maybe those are more interesting. But that's still kind of a steep price for a monthly subscription.
Yeah, $18. It's quite a bit. But so that is accessible there. So if you want to check that out on your Xbox, you definitely can. I believe it is cross progression support, so you can actually pick up where you left off on the PC or Amazon Luna or a PlayStation as well. So
nice.
Whoa. I just remembered that Amazon has
I know. I know.
We have to be reminded about once every couple months because, it doesn't get talked about.
Wow.
But yeah, so there you go. If you are or someone that wants that, you can have access to that. So, okay, let's talk about. I find this kind of a interesting thing because, well, one, we have talked about Netflix and their games. This I find interesting just because the Halo veteran Joseph Staten is actually joining Netflix games. So the one that helped release Halo Infinite, Halo 1, 2, 3, Reach. Anyway, kind of helped cross the line. He actually helped with a bunch of other games to help finish games. He was I guess a lot of people call him a finisher.
Mm-hmm.
To help games like he actually helped with actually getting Crackdown 3 out the door. Like, Halo Infinite out the door. A lot of games just get it out. But he actually is heading over to Netflix games where
to get Netflix games out the door, right?
I mean, there you go. So I mean, he's been with Microsoft forever, for the longest time, and so this is just a new endeavor, which is cool. I mean, if you've been working with a certain amount, maybe you do want to stretch out and try other things. So I think that'll be cool. It's really interesting when I kind of dug a little deeper into this. I have found that Microsoft and Netflix have been exchanging their employees quite a bit. So before Netflix had a big hiatus that came over to Microsoft, and then all of a sudden Game Pass started happening. But Microsoft had a bunch of people went over to Netflix. And so it's interesting as I dug deeper, things are going back and forth right now between Netflix and
all of the streaming people are going from Netflix over to Microsoft to help with streaming games. Yep. And then all the game people are going from Microsoft over to Netflix to help them make games.
So
that's hilarious.
It's kind of an interesting thing. Like I said, I didn't realize that, but as I was digging deeper, I was like, oh, well, look at that. But yeah, so let's see. Also, something that was it was they didn't really announce or anything, but on a stream for Diablo 4, they decided to have a stream the other day and say that they're doing one more beta. They're calling it the Server Slam. So from May 12th through the 14th, they're having another beta for that. They want everybody and anybody to just get on to Server Slam, is what they're calling it, to test out servers before the launch. There is an extra reward on here. You can have a try at the other rewards that were available. So the title, the pup and everything. Mm-hmm. But also, this next one is you have to defeat the world boss and you will get a mount trinket for your game.
Mount trinkets.
Mount trinket. At first it looked like a cool mount, but then I realized that it's just like an arm or a tooth or something of the monster. But now also it is a wipe, they said. So you're going to start all over. So all your characters are going to be back to level 1. And then you have to get to level 20 and then defeat the boss. And there you go. They did say that they're going to have it spawn every 3 hours. So that way people have more opportunities to try and kill the boss. So May 12th through the 14th.
Perfect. That sounds like fun.
Are you going to actually get on and try it?
I'll slam the servers. I'm trying to think, like, if they really want to slam the servers, how many computers do I have that can run Diablo 4? Because I can get them all queued up at the same time.
There you go. Make it happen. But yeah, so that's kind of all the news that I have on the gaming side. Like we talked earlier, I mean, be prepared, listener, once this ABK thing really, I mean, it could start next week as soon as CMA and EU give their verdicts of the approval. I mean, I think everyone else in the freaking world, even Japan, is like, yep, good.
Yeah.
You know, so
I will bet you money that the FTC has already written up their approval. They're just sitting on it until everybody else speaks.
I bet they're mostly just waiting for the EU.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably. But once that happens, there's going to be so much news.
Basically, the FTC, the actual commission, has decided we're not going to do any work. We're just going to write up an approval, wait for the EU to do their due diligence, and if they approve it, then everything's fine, and we'll say okay. Like, we don't care. They're going to do way more research, and they're going to put way more effort into it than we would. So if they say it's okay, then it's okay. Like,
yep.
You know,
I don't know. Every time I try to look into stuff like that, it pisses me off sometimes because I'm like, this stuff loops and
that's how I did my homework in college. I think that it's a totally valid strategy. You just wait for somebody else to do the work and you copy it.
Oh my gosh. Fair enough, I guess. Is that what they're teaching now in college? No.
I don't think they ever weren't teaching that in college, let's be honest.
Let someone else do the work. But yeah, be prepared. Once that does happen next week, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of things rolling. I mean, because with even the games that are releasing, like the big one, Starfield's coming out in September. I mean, every month to maybe every other month, there's going to be some slamming gaming news, and then hardware that's dropping and all sorts of stuff. And they've already confirmed through this deal that they're already working on their next iterations, or what do you call it, updates for this gen for both PlayStation as well as Xbox.
Yep.
So who knows, those will be coming out too for specs of those, and then my goodness, news. So we might be getting back to those longer podcasts, guys. Oh, anyway, that's all my news that I have for today. Caleb, do you want to finish us off here?
I do. Listener, this is news and a little bit of rumors, but mostly it's a talking point. So, you know what that means, listener. It's time for a rant. Let's talk about NVIDIA.
We need
everybody's favorite company.
I think we need to get a bumper per person that or company you're ranting about to make it just a sweet chime. And I don't know how to do it, or we got to come up with something.
Yeah, an introduction to the segment. Spend Love Rants. Okay. So, the news portion of this. A couple weeks ago, NVIDIA launched the RTX 4070. New graphics card. Everybody talked about it. Everybody hated it. Okay, hated is maybe a strong word. I think everybody hated NVIDIA for doing it. The graphics card itself is Like, it's kind of hard to be angry at it, but there's absolutely no reason to be excited about it. So essentially, it performs fine. It plays games. It does rendering and makes pictures on the shiny box. Like, I don't know what more you want from this thing, okay? Like, it works. And it's very efficient. Way more efficient than the 4080 and the 4090, which makes sense. It's obviously a much lower powered card. Okay, so yeah, efficiency is good. But it is not a huge generational leap like the 4090 was, for instance. And the price to performance for this thing at $600 launch price, MSRP $600, is awful. It's stupid. It doesn't make any sense. The card itself performs about 2% faster in actual raster rendering of games, so the actual rendering out of the pixels, than the 3070 did. Okay? I'm not talking about the 3070 Ti either. No, 3070, vanilla 3070 is 2% slower than the 4070. NVIDIA seems to be relying on the fact that you get DLSS 3.0 with the 40 series cards to make up for the fact that this doesn't actually perform any better than last year's card. It's more efficient. It uses less power to generate the same number of frames, but you're paying $600. That's $100 more than the 3070 cost, and the 3070 was $100 more than the 2070 cost, and the 2070 was $100 more. No, not quite 100. It's like $80 more than the 1070 was. Just freaking heck, NVIDIA! Every single generation it has been like this. Like, and I'm sorry, inflation has not been going like that, listener. Don't let NVIDIA try and fool you. Don't let them be like, oh, but inflation is so bad for everyone. Yeah, it's affecting you and the way that you buy groceries. That's absolutely true. But NVIDIA's markups have increased by something like 200% over the past 10 years. Yet eggs don't cost 200% more now than they did 10 years ago, listener. I'm not sure if you've been paying attention. So inflation has not been, like, that's not what this is. This is just NVIDIA being greedy, which they kind of can because the market has allowed them to do that to this point. That being said, also to accompany the launch of the RTX 4070 and everyone basically just crapping on NVIDIA for being dicks about the pricing on this thing, Radeon has decreased the prices of some of their 6000 series cards, right? So that's previous generation, obviously. The latest generation are the 7000 series cards, but they haven't really launched the full lineup of those, just kind of the top tier ones. But the RX 6950 XT, okay? That was their top tier graphics card from last generation. They've dropped the price of that thing to about $650, which is, $50 more than the 4070's list price. But holy crap, that thing absolutely kicks the pants off of the performance of the 4070. Yes, it's more power hungry, but holy snot, just buy that. Don't buy the 4070. It's a stupid value proposition, and it's insulting that NVIDIA thinks that this is a thing that we should purchase. Now, to the credit of the market thus far, it's been a couple of weeks, and unlike previous generations, or the previous cards in the 40 series generation, this thing has not at any point been difficult to get. Like, it has been in stock, oodles of cards available at every retailer in the world ever since it launched. So demand for this card is not super high, which is great. Another piece of news, listener, NVIDIA has responded to this lack of demand by cutting production costs, or cutting production of the 4070.
Oh, geez. That's
not reducing costs, cutting production, creating an artificial limitation on the number of cards actually available to force you to pay for it. It is like the worst possible thing they could have done for consumer welfare in this situation. I just can't. Oh my gosh, NVIDIA. Like, could you try just a little bit to not look like Emperor Palpatine from the Star Wars films? Just for a moment, Jensen, could you step out from behind the Praetorian Guards and stop trying to force lightning us with your mind? Okay, just
Caleb, he can feel your anger.
I know. And he's gonna feel my frickin' saber here in a minute. Anyways. Maybe my favorite part about all of this is that this past week, rumors have dropped, and they've dropped in such a way that it feels almost certain that NVIDIA intentionally leaked this stuff about a new graphics card, the RTX 4060 Ti. Because surely, this one won't be a piece of crap. by which I mean it won't be an overpriced just turd, essentially. A card that does not perform any better than last generation and yet costs more than last generation. Surely, NVIDIA will change from their last graphics card launch to this one. Surely. Of course they won't.
No.
And don't call me Shirley. So, listener, basically what we have come down to here is that at this point, I wouldn't even buy a used NVIDIA card. I wouldn't even buy an NVIDIA card that came out of a mining rig from back when everything was horrible and graphics cards cost 4,000 times what they were supposed to, and so on and so forth. Like, at this point, I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. Like, basically, if you would like to upgrade your gaming PC, you want to get a new graphics card to put in there, you have two options. You can buy an Intel graphics card in the hope that someday there will be a third competitor in this market. And in the meantime, you just won't be able to play half your games. Or you can buy an AMD card. Now, if you're going to buy one of those, buy one of the 6000 generation cards. They were okay when they launched, but the prices have come down since then. And crucially, AMD has updated their drivers a whole bunch. And every time they've updated their drivers on these cards, you get more performance out of the cards, which is awesome. Should the drivers have been in that state when they launched the cards? Probably, yeah. But you know what? At least they did update them. So that would be my recommendation. If you're in the market for a graphics card, you can buy a new, like from Newegg with a warranty, new inbox, RX 6000 series graphics card. That, you know, that's great. If you're feeling a little bit more adventurous, get like a 5700 XT or something like that from eBay that came out of a mining rig or whatever. You're going to pay like pennies to the dollar of what it originally went for, and you're going to get a ton of performance out of the thing for maybe $200, $250, something like that. So that's where I would be shopping right now. If you're in the market for a graphics card, AMD is not a bad place to shop. Do not buy anything from NVIDIA until they fix their stupid pricing. So that's where we're at. Like I said, a little bit of news, a little bit of rumors. Mostly I'm just pissed off. So
it feels your anger.
So yes, that's it for me. That's all my gaming news. Just gonna rant about NVIDIA. Call it a night.
That's a good. We'll leave it at that because we're gonna have a lot more news here soon. So
yes.
Oh, all right, dear listener. I think we're going to go ahead and end it there. We do appreciate you listening. If you want to get hold of us, you can on our social media platforms. You can also check out a YouTube channel, which is starting to get some more uploads of things.
Maybe we'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah.
You can also get a hold of us at our website at callingallplatforms.com. If you feel like you want to support Landen because he has to deal with us who is here, you can go ahead and hop on our Patreon, check that out, and see if that's something you want to help Landen with. Because man, dealing with us, listen, that guy, he deserves a raise.
This is why I got to give you hope for the future, Wes.
Hope for so much news. Hey, you know what? When that finally hits, there's going to be so much. I don't know what to predict after that, other than
who knows?
You know, so we'll see what happens. But till then, dear listener, have a good week.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Calling All Platforms is a production of Supporter Sound Studios. To learn more about how you can support the podcast, go to www.patreon.com/callingallplatforms.